Laat me eerst even lopen. Hello, my name is Luc Sala and I'm here in Damanhur, the nation of Damanhur, the community, the federation of Damanhur, because Damanhur is a spiritual community, but in fact a whole set of communities. Nearly 450 people living together, working together, and bounded in a spiritual quest. And where is Damanhur? Damanhur is in the hills bordering the Alps near Torino, near Turin, in the northern part of Italy, in the Piedmont. It is a hilly area, but very close to the flatland around Turin. Damanhur was founded about 25 years ago by Alberto Airaudi and some friends who started a spiritual community. In those days they were picking their environment, the art they made, from really an eclectic background. Atlantis, Egypt. And what we see here represents still that background. Because Damanhur is not only a spiritual community, it has become like a museum of spiritually engaged art. In this ground, and this is only the main center of the Damanhur communities, they have assembled all kinds of creative and artistic works. But the whole place in itself is chosen not at random, but because this place is in the center of some synchronicity lines. The world is, in fact, it's not an organism that has no soul, that has no depth, that has no life, according to the Damanhurians. The earth itself contains four lines. Ley lines are a form of it, but here at Damanhur it's a place where four lines, four synchronicity lines, synchronous lines cross. So it's one of the power spots of the world. Another place where four lines cross is in Tibet. But so this was chosen deliberately to be a place for a spiritual endeavor. And what an endeavor. We will show you a little bit of the grounds, and here you see all kinds of, we could call that creation in action, or deliberate spiritual artwork. For instance, the labyrinths. There's a number of labyrinths around the grounds here, and they are small, usually circles, but they might have many forms. And of course this idea of labyrinths comes from the very old, for instance in Chartres there is a labyrinth in the church. But the labyrinth is basically a walking pattern that has a special influence on you. Because of the movement of your body and your orientation towards the earth, some parts of your physical body, but most important, some parts of your etheric body will have some influence. And for instance, there's one labyrinth that goes in a circle and that helps you if you are suffering from headaches. But there are many more. And that is a good example of what Damanhur tries to do. It tries to bring art into a form which is both religious and beneficial to our body. It's not only spirituality here, it's work too. This community is self-sustaining. Not only because of the artwork they create and the products they have developed, but the people here sometimes work out from Damanhur, for instance in the information industry around here in Turin or Ivrea. So it's quite a prosperous community. People drive cars, and it doesn't have the neglect of the material that you sometimes see in spiritual communities. So it's not a monastery. People live here, people have children, they have their own school, but the school does conform with the Italian standards of education. It really is a community. When I was here about 7 years ago, there were less people, but the basic outline of the grounds was the same. Only now you can see much more work has been put into it. Now, damanhur is quite different from, say, a monastery, or even from spiritual communities like the Esselen grounds in Big Sur, because it has its own, more than a philosophy, it has its own structure. It sees its place in our era as a very important one. Not only because this place is lying on these cross lines, but because they are engaging in what you could easily, but too easily probably call magic. Spirituality and magic. They use forms, they use language, they use body movements, all in an integrated way. In a way that has brought what they now call the damanhurian culture, which has its own forms. And although around here we can trace back the roots in the Egyptian or the Atlantic influences, as far as we know from Atlantis, from what was passed on through times. But definitely what has grown is a new form. And thereby we come to the essence of damanhur. Damanhur is, apart from a community where people live and create and make very creative handicraft, where they make great art, where they're building these labyrinths, where they're building very special selfic instruments, healing instruments. This place is concerned with its place in time. And that was a great and hidden secret for a long time. Because what we see here is only part of damanhur. Behind the hills, somewhere out there, about half a mile from here, is an underground temple. And that's what brought damanhur into the news over the past few years. In fact, it was a secret and sacred place. The damanhurians built under the guidance of Alberto Airaudi, who we come to that, calls himself Falco in Italian, has built an underground complex of temples, of places of worship, of research places, and it's quite large. It's one of the largest man-made temple complexes underground. And not only is it big, it is of astonishing artistic beauty. It's a very inspired place, to say in short. But why is that temple there? To pray to the gods of fire, of water, of air, of earth? Well, out here, in what they call the outdoors temple, there's already places of worships and altars. Because damanhur sees itself connected to nature. There is spirituality, but it is the kind that really refers back to our environment, the world around us, nature. And so there are altars of earth, fire, water, and air. And there is great veneration of nature and preservation. There's areas here that are really kept off from normal use to preserve nature. But so the essence of what damanhur is about time. Bringing a new time, but also connecting to the time outside the now. And that's where the magic steps in. But is it magic or is it science? Part of damanhur is a ritual way to transcend the borders of time. Time travel is a word that we find in science fiction, but in fact what people are trying to do here is place themselves in other times. Now there's two ways to do that. One of them is in the mind, and that is what many people have done in the past. And if you know about regression techniques, people searching for their previous life, reincarnation techniques where you go and see what you were in previous lives, that is fairly well known. And that's a technique that has been used all through the ages. It's like traveling in time in your mind. And now you can say, I'm a disbeliever in this kind of reality. what people do there is only in their minds. Well, that's fine if you believe that, but still people can have a mental time travel trip that tells them a lot about other times, about their understanding of history, but mostly about themselves, about what goes on inside. And especially people who have experiences like that will agree that those can be fantastic things. And there's, even for normal people, there's ways to experience that, because there's tapes out in the market which do a little bit like hypnosis and then tell you to lie down, quiet down, and visualize those places and those times. But that's only part of what damanhur does. The other part is what they claim is that they really travel in time. Now, that is not an everyday experience, not even for the damanhurians. It's a very select, let's call it a trip, a very select experience, which requires a lot of preparation, a lot of ritual, a lot of training. So that's something we cannot really explain, because I haven't done it, and it's part of their sacred and a little bit secret work. But it certainly is one of the main points of attraction. People who want to research the metaphysics, because that's what they're doing. It is beyond the sensible, it's beyond the normal. Those who really want to go into metaphysics are drawn to damanhur to become part of this society, of this community. Become part in daily life, but also in the spiritual quest. Now, coming back to that temple, and I've been in it, and it's a wonderful place. It's a very beautiful place, but it also is a strange place. I must tell you, I went in there and I had strange experiences. For instance, there's a room that is gilded on all sides. Now you already are maybe 20, 30, 40 meters down into the under the rock, but added to that is this gilded place. And my personal experience was that I could feel my own thought coming back to me. The idea that the world that as I'm sitting here, I'm influenced by the thoughts and the patterns of life and by all things around me from other people, but maybe also from nature. But there they created a place where in a way you're shielded off from this earthly vibrations. Those things that in your mind make, you could call it the noise, but basically it's everything around you. Distraction of a normal kind, like sounds or whatever, what we hear here, but also the distractions by other people's thoughts. And 7 years ago, when I was here for the first time, there was a very novel idea to say that the thoughts of others would influence you. But in the meantime, Rupert Sheldrake, of course, has written this book, what was 7 Ways to Change the World, in where he describes experiments to prove that, for instance, when you are being looked at by someone, you feel it. Now, this was against the normal physics. It goes against normal science. But by now, statistically, it has been proven that, yes, if you are being looked at, you feel it. You know you're being looked at. Although that's in the normal scientific way of physics, that is not explainable. But it basically means that he or she who's looking at you gives you some radiation and that you feel it. Now, in this temple, I felt at some time that there was a place where that kind of external influences was filtered out, banned, wasn't there. And that kind of expanded my inner awareness. In fact, it made me free to really find out what's going on inside. And I could imagine that that's the setting where experiments in the real metaphysical world can take place. But this place was very secret until about, I think, 18 or 19 years after they started building it. Because it was the secret of damanhur. The people were living out here, but they were working in that underground temple, enlarging it, making it more beautiful, making it the real treasure it is now. But then something happened and they had to come out. They got into a fight not only with the local government but also with the local church. Because you can imagine, we're here in Italy and the Roman Catholic Church is a very powerful institution here, and they're not very happy with a group of people who openly proclaim their relationship to nature, who have altars for air, water, fire, earth. That is seen as a, well, not so much heretic but as an animistic belief system. And in the middle of Italy, that is not the nice thing to do. So the church kind of oppressed. And as it goes, there are laws in every country, what you can build and what you cannot build, and what is safe and what is not safe, and building limits and permits. And so a whole struggle developed between the people of Damanhur and the local church and the local government. But this is now 5 to 7 years ago, and in the meantime a more symbiotic relationship has grown. There is a temple, and it's, although not open to the public per se, by visiting Damanhur you can visit their underground temple, and under certain conditions. It's not like a day trip. You really have to stay some time here and open yourself up to the wider message of Damanhur, which is not only their temple, but it's the whole grounds, it's the whole idea of living in a harmonious relationship with the world around you and with each other. The whole community idea is very crucial to Damanhur. But so the fight between the world and Damanhur has subsided, and in fact it's so that even now they are taking part in the local political scene, and the mayor of one of the smaller civil communities is a Damanhurian. So things have subsided, and it's becoming now in fact an attraction for the region. People from all over the world come to Damanhur to participate in the ritual, to participate in the creative and artistic work, and even become part of the community. Because you can be part of the Damanhur community even while you're not living here. It's a spiritual community, and for people who seriously endeavor in going beyond the borders of time and space, you understand that living in America or Amsterdam or whatever doesn't make much of a barrier. So you can become part of that Damanhur community by, for instance, looking at their website, damanhur.it, and reading about it and get in touch with them. They are quite up to date on, say, modern technology. Although here one might feel oneself in an Atlantic temple, in something that vanished maybe 10 or 15,000 years ago, but was recreated. And as I said before, it was recreated in an integrative way. We're not only looking at artwork, at sculptures, but we're looking at a language, at music, at a whole integrated cultural awareness. Alberto Araudi, by some way of channeling, came up with a language and forms and symbols and artwork and healing techniques, and even a very special way of healing, or even say harmonizing, which is called selfic art. Now, it's not about the self, it just happens to be the word self, but selfic art consists of spirals and mostly metallic and special fluids combined in jewelry that you can wear, or things that you can put in your room. And they seem to help very much against the disturbance, the influence, say, of radiology, the things that are in the air these days. We all have mobile phones, there is radio and television. The ether has been really filled with pollution, electromagnetic pollution. And the selfic art seems to be something that protects you against it. But it also has other healing function. But as said before, it's only part of a whole block of a culture that people kind of slowly become part of it. They even change their names. And when they come here, they start with becoming accustomed with Damanhur, but after a while they choose a name from the animal domain. Then later they might choose a name from the plant domain, and I'm sure that somewhere there's a level where they must choose a name from the mineral domain. But the people we've asked, they say, no, that isn't. Well, that makes sense. But anyway, I feel that the whole philosophy, the whole culture of the damanhur place is something that has grown and is developing and is changing over time in its relationship with nature. And as such, in a time where we are really polluting nature all over the place, where all our beautiful stories about changing the world and making it a better place in practice don't come out. We're still driving cars, we're still polluting the world, we still have wars. But here at least there is a little signal of hope, of change, of something that, as I said, essentially wants to be outside of time. Something that relates to the future and the past in being its own individual and very different but fascinating culture. This is damanhur. The total world. And I'm trying to explain. My lessons in that are not for people to learn to do that, to recognize the magic of politics.